everyone to the PFRC meeting regarding the Arlington Career Center. For orientation purposes, this is Wednesday, May 17th. My fancy watch just told me so. And we are starting a few minutes late. If your clocks do not deceive you, I apologize. There's a lot of construction. Welcome to this evening's meeting. We are conducting this meeting in a hybrid fashion, in person and remote, due to permissions with regards from the Commonwealth with regards to conducting our meetings in a hybrid fashion going forward. We do have a quorum of attendees in person for the purposes of holding this meeting, and this meeting is being recorded for note-taking and recording purposes. These are not the standard remarks. I don't have those with me. Great. Presentations? Oh, sorry, this is just via PFRC meeting. Previous meetings have been joint with the BLPC, but we are now at the point of having just a PFRC meeting before we anticipate to go to the Planning Commission with regards to the use permit, which is the next item on the agenda timeline-wise. Okay, and I believe staff has a presentation.
Yes, so I'll just share this update verbally since we are almost at the completion of the use permit review process. On previous schedules, we were scheduled to go to the Climate Change, Energy, and Environment Commission. They have provided a letter separately and said they do not need to see this project in person. So we will be removing that from the agenda. But the next upcoming meetings will be May 23rd, the Parks and Recreation Commission, May 25th, the Transportation Commission, and then either May 31st or June 1st for Planning Commission. They're still working on setting their agenda for those meetings. And then same with the June 10th and June 13th County Board hearings. I'm not sure which day yet we will be on the agenda for those items. But with that, I'll pass it off to APS.
Can I ask a question about that quickly? Is that letter publicly available?
It should be available on the website, but I can double check to make sure that it's there.
It certainly will be made publicly available if it is not already
yes.
there.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Olivia. I'll introduce our team real quick. For those who don't know me, Steve Stricker, Project Manager with APS. To my left, Jeff Chambers, Director of Design and Construction, and presenter today, Jasmine McDuffie, Principal and Project Architect from Stantec Architects. A couple of quick updates before turning it over to Jasmine. So our formal third round use permit submission is targeting Friday of this week. And the presentation you're going to see tonight is really focusing on the design refinements for site and architecture from what we saw last time at the joint BLPC PFRC. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jasmine.
Thank you, Steve. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the updates that Steve alluded to. Give you some updates on some of the design refinements we made over the last couple of weeks. First is we made a modification to the curbless environment paving extent. We've been working with the county on the streetscape design and layout for 9th Street, and we have two options that we're going to show you tonight. We've also been working with the county on looking at widening the sidewalk along 7th Street. We're going to show you plans for that. We've also added some additional trees on the north side of the parking garage to add some additional shielding to the neighborhood. From an architectural standpoint, we've made a few refinements to the new ACC that we'll present. The first one is the 5th floor pop-up roof. It was a 3-part sawtooth roof, and so we've made some slight revisions to that form. We've also simplified the main entry canopy, and we made some refinements to the metal panels on the parking garage. Starting with the site, still maintain the curbless environment. We have decided to look at limiting the paving, the concrete paving, to the area between the drive or access aisle between South Waltery Drive and South Highland Street. Remaining of the curbless environment will be asphalt. So really the only change is just adding this little piece of pavement to asphalt. In terms of the rest of the site, we haven't made any further modifications. These are the additional trees that we're looking at the parking garage, as I mentioned earlier. And the extent of the canopy, you can see that's a smaller shown here in Plan B. The next slide I'm going to show you is a civil drawing of identifying streetscape sections that we are going to be showing you tonight. We're going to show you 3 sections that are going to be along South Watery Drive, a section of the streetscape at South Highland Street, and a street section along 7th. As I mentioned earlier, we'll be presenting 2 options for the streetscape design on 9th Street. So here's the civil drawing. The areas in blue, in terms of these section markers, are where the sections are taken from. So we'll begin with the sections off of South Watery Drive. And 9th Street is, again, 2 options that we are going to present tonight for your review. The street section through Highland is cut near the parking garage. And we have a streetscape section through 7th Street South, cut out here. So the first section, I want to call your attention to this 30-foot dimension. That is a dimension that, in terms of the design of this area of the streetscape, which varies along South Watery Drive. We are maintaining a 14-foot minimum sidewalk dimension. That varies because the building does step back away from South Watery Drive. So that dimension is a minimum dimension, and you'll see in some of the future sections that increases. Adjacent to that streetscape sidewalk dimension, we have a 6-foot bike lane, 3-foot buffer, and 6-foot parking area along part of the South Watery Drive streetscape.
Yes, but that's a 7-foot parking.
Pardon me?
7-foot parking.
7-foot parking, I'm sorry. Yes. This is a section cut through the planting strip with the trees. So you'll see where the trees are located, that minimum 14-foot dimension reduces to 8. But as I mentioned earlier, because the building does step back away from South Watery Drive, we have additional sidewalk width, which varies along the length of that angle. We continue to have the 6-foot bike lane, 3-foot buffer, and 7-foot parking. And there are going to be locations where we have, again, a 14-foot streetscape, bike lane, and then where we have buses, there will not be any parking or buffer, but a 10-foot wide angle lane for buses. This is a section off of South 7th Street South. This is the edge of the sidewalk closest to our site. And so what we're proposing is the existing travel width stays the same, but we are going to be providing a 6-foot grass buffer zone and a 6-foot sidewalk.
5-foot grass, right?
5-foot grass. And this is the streetscape along South Highland Street. This is the edge on the parking garage. So we have a 6-foot sidewalk, 5-foot grass area, and since the parking garage does angle, the distance between the sidewalk and the building does vary. These are 2 views of the alternates that we are reviewing for the 9th Street, South Street with the county. The first option, and they vary in terms of the parking and the bike lanes. So in option 1, there's a bike lane on both the eastbound and westbound sides of the street. This is the side closest to the parking garage, and so there's a 4-foot buffer. There's a parking lane, a single parking lane, and then 2 drive aisles. 2-foot buffer, bike lane, and sidewalk. So this option has one lane of parking. Option 2 has the bike lane on the south end of the street, the buffer, a parking lane, so protected bike lane, and then 2 drive aisles, and one of those is a shower, and then the parking lane located here as well. Part of the project we've been reviewing with DES is widening 7th Street along the full length, and so the scope of that varies. There's a scope of along the frontage along MPSA. And so that scope would be to widen from 4 feet to 6 feet, which is about 200 linear feet of length. The sidewalk will remain at the back of curb with the existing utility poles remaining in place. This work would be done by the county in 2023 summer. And when this building is eventually, when MPSA is eventually demolished, the streetscape would be built out to match the streetscape that would be in front of the new ACC. So for the sidewalk adjacent to the new ACC, east of Patrick Henry or MPSA, we would be widening the sidewalk from 4 feet to 11-foot streetscape, a 5-foot utility strip, and 6-foot clear sidewalk. Next, I want to go into some of the design changes that we've made to the ACC that I mentioned earlier. Just highlight a few of the gestures we made from a design standpoint, which we believe fall in line with your principles of civic design. The first, the music room pop-up roof used to be a 3-tier sawtooth roof. We've simplified that roof form and made it a single angled roof. In terms of some of the principles and some of the things we've mentioned in the streetscape, the building does continue to step back along South Walter Reed Drive. That creates that increases the sidewalk width beyond 14 feet at many locations along this street. And we are creating the curbless environment to promote uniform accessibility and to create a pedestrian-friendly and bike-friendly environment. The other thing I just want to highlight is that the building does step down towards 7th Street. We're trying to keep a lower mass along the edge of 7th Street, adjacent to the residential community, and the building does step up as you go further south. This is an aerial view looking at the west elevation. And we've also stepped the massing away from 7th Street to provide a landscape buffer between the new school entrance and 7th Street residents. We've also added trees along the campus to provide shading and provide nice open space for the public. This is a view of the main entrance. This shows the more simplified canopy at the main entrance. And we were using materials that highlight the public spaces in the building with use of metal panel, phenolic panel, and curtain wire storefront, which differentiates the building and public areas from the more academic core spaces, which are in the brick. We're also working with APS to really utilize durable materials that are long-lasting, especially at the streetscape elevation. So there's masonry along that water table along South Walter Drive. This is the entrance at the secondary entrance off of 7th Street. And again, the building steps back from 7th Street using masonry along these core academic spaces and highlighting the gym pop-up phenolic panels. And it shows the MPSA playfields constructed. Additional views of New ACC, again highlighting that curbless environment, pedestrian-friendly, accessible environment for the community. In terms of the parking garage, we've refined the metal panels a bit. Before they were sticking up past the top of the parapet. We want to minimize the height of the parking garage. We pulled that down. So I feel like that creates the design intent of adding color and shielding the view of the vehicles from the community. And we've the pedestrian entrances to the parking garage are separated from vehicle entrances for safety. And that entrance is off of the stair tower. We continue to provide glazing into the stair towers and for visibility. And this is that pedestrian entrance to the parking garage, right into the stairwell. This is a view from South Highland and 9th Street. Again, we pulled the metal panels down, but you can see that still hides the view of the garage in terms of the vehicles. And then the use of landscape trees, a variety of different types to provide a buffer between the community and the garage. This is the parking garage view from South Highland Street. We're looking at opportunities to use trees as a screening opportunity here. It now enables us to pull back the metal panel a bit here. Again, introducing glass into the stairwells for visibility. This is the view of that corner looking towards South Highland and how the building steps back and the tree buffer provides shielding to the garage. In terms of the MPSA scope, I know there's been a lot of discussion and questions about why that's not included in the demolition of that project or relocation of MPSA into the existing career center. Isn't included in the scope, and so we just have a couple of highlighted comments here. Just a reminder that the scope of the project is based off of the schematic design that was approved by the school board in 2022. The school board did direct the superintendent to continue to plan for the Career Center campus by addressing phase 2, which would include a refresh of the existing ACC to accommodate MPSA in the fall of 2028, and a phase 3 that would demolish the existing MPSA building to be replaced by a new field or open space that work commencing after 2028. Since that action passed, a study has been completed to explore how MPSA's EdSpec can be accommodated in the existing ACC. The renovation, relocation, and site reconstruction is not included in the current CIP. Therefore, it's not funded, and therefore it cannot be included in the use permit for this project. Based on the above school board action, it would be anticipated that the future of the existing MPSA building and the existing ACC building will be addressed in the next 10-year CIP, which will be passed in the summer of 2024, allowing funding for the relocation of MPSA to the existing ACC and allow MPSA building to be demolished. It would allow for accurate amendments to the use permit and allow for the appropriate work to be approved for the campus. And we've also determined that a regulation soccer field and additional green space is able to be accommodated on the site if the MPSA building and surrounding playfields, where this MPSA building and surrounding playfields currently occupied. And that concludes our presentation. We have some reference documents for any of the questions.
Thank you. So I do want to hit some clarifying questions. I have a few myself, which I will run through, I think, in quick succession, and then I'd like to hear if there's clarifying questions from folks in the room, folks on the phone, and so forth. Just to clarify, for the 7th Street sidewalk widening, that project is anticipated to start this summer. That's like in a number of like 2 months.
So that's, we've had conversations with DES about that. And supposedly they are taking that on. So in terms of the timing on that, I can't really comment, other than they have stated that it should happen this summer.
Okay, they know that that's 2023, not some other summer.
I
Okay,
don't want to speak for
Yes,
the.
I can.
okay, great, thank you. That was very fast, I just wanted to clarify.
Rob popped up if you wanted to. Ask Rob.
I think he just said yes, didn't he? Did I hear that?
Yeah, I do want to clarify that we
Okay.
are hoping to coordinate that with APS's work at that same corner. So, yeah, if they don't move the fence back, then we can't build the sidewalk, and that will be we're working to coordinate those efforts.
Okay, thank you. Can we go to the slide that show the southeast aerial view, where kind of the sidewalk is so widening? I don't remember what slide that is, but it was before number 17. This could be a good one, I think this shows. So it's really almost kind of like, it's getting kind of so wide at where some of the building setbacks, it's almost kind of creating like it's wider than simply sidewalk. It's almost like approaching patio kind of feeling. Is there a plan for kind of benches? Is there some sort of like is there an intentionality to sort of like have unstructured programming of that space?
Yes, so some of
Is there a
that,
better slide for that? I just didn't.
yeah, this kind of shows those areas. And so some of them will be used for bike racks. Some of them are additional green space, and some of them will have fire retention areas in them, so plantings.
Okay. And then can we go to slide 17? That time I wrote on the slide.
Is there seating proposed there?
I don't know that we have seating. I mean, a lot of them are bioswales that'll be active stormwater management devices. But if there's.
Can you sit on them?
They could have seating walls.
They could have, yeah, seating around it.
Okay. I mean, I think that might be a nice, campus students, that the public going through.
They could also serve the dual purpose of preventing contaminants from getting into that area as well.
Also that, the shadowing that I'm seeing, is that indicating trees? Is that
Yes.
just okay, that was, all right, I just wanted to
There
make
are
sure I was
trees between
understanding
the
that.
MPSA playfield
And the-
and the.
okay.
sidewalk.
Okay, that's what I was expecting, but I wanted to, the shadow effect almost looked like art of some sort, I was trying to figure that out, okay. And then I think, and maybe this is if I looked closer at the appendix, I would answer my next question for myself, but some of the color palette on the larger screen is looking kind of in the purple family, but I think it's less purple when I was sneaking over my shoulder at your computer,
Kind of depends on
the lighting, so I just wanted to, okay. 'Cause I think it's a little more in like the gray-green family-ish.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of hard. I mean, these are the proposed finishes.
Yeah.
Along this far
Uh-huh.
right column.
Okay,
And so those are a more accurate depiction of the colors.
okay,
Even here, it might look a little purple.
Yeah.
It's not purple.
okay, it's not really, okay. Those were my clarifying questions. Are there any clarifying questions in the room? Yes.
Go ahead, Chris.
Who-
I just wanted to be clear about the sidewalks. So I understand from here to here, like for instance, looking at slide 4, from the northwest tip to the southeast tip, that's all gonna be 6 feet.
Yes.
Okay, and can you clarify from the south? I'm gonna get my bridge.
From the corner of South Highland and Ninth
Uh-huh.
to the driveway, the bus loop exit at MPSA will be new streetscape. And then,
So from here to here?
correct. And that sidewalk on Highland in front of MPSA is all 4'6", I believe.
The existing.
I want to say
Yeah.
4 foot, I don't know about 4 foot.
But and there are no telephone poles. The problem with the sidewalk on the 7th Street is there's telephone poles which don't make it accessible.
There's one here.
And Jeff, just to clarify on the 7th Street, it's a 6-foot sidewalk that the county is putting in from Highland to the number 4. I'm sorry, not to the just south of the number 4 on the sheet right there. And then APS with the new ACC project will put in a 6-foot sidewalk with a 5-foot planting strip at the back of curb.
Correct. Thank you, Rob.
Do you have a follow-up or another clarifying question? That's fine.
I have like 5.
That's fine. Why don't you do your clarifying questions, and then we'll move to you, and we'll hit them, and then we'll hit the online people.
Okay, and you said that, this section in between the field and now I'm looking at slide 4, you changed that to pavers to asphalt. Is there a rationale for that?
Yeah, for the maintenance, and basically it's going to be concrete sidewalk on the west side of that, and on the south side it will be, on the east side would be the tree bosque with the stabilized gravel. So that's still the same. We just, the travel lane, we made asphalt. For the durability of it, and also make it flexible for any modification that gets made when MPSA building is not there and that gets redeveloped.
My next question is looking at slide 19, and I don't have in my mind what this used to look like, if it looks different. It seemed to me that I thought there were more panels, or maybe the panels went down further. Has the size or configuration of the panels on the parking garage changed at all?
You can see the old ones on slide 28.
Right, or, okay,
Yeah, so previously the metal panels stuck up above the height of the parapet.
yeah,
To face
so,
the height of the garage, so pulled those down.
Are the panels the same size? They've just been lowered?
And lower.
They've also been raised, it looks like. from
looks
the
like they haven't.
Old rendering. The bottom of it has been raised.
That's on slide 28, you said?
Yeah,
I guess I'm just
or
wondering.
they've been shortened as well.
And this was thought they could shorten this.
This is true.
We're providing a landscape screen of trees.
I'm sorry, I can't understand what's going on. So this is old and not accurate, is
This
that
is
what you're
the-
saying?
What we're proposing is what's current.
This is current.
That is current.
Okay, and so on slide 19, these really short panels are not current.
No, that is current as well. It's different on
It's a
all
different
4
view.
elevations.
Okay.
Same adjustment was made.
So I'm still a little unclear about what it used to look like. Were there more panels or
I
further?
think they were longer.
They were taller.
And is this a clarifying question if I ask why that change was done?
I'll allow it.
Well, one, we didn't want to have the height of the garage too tall, so we pulled it down. And the other reason was we just were working with the metal panel manufacturers in terms of what we needed for support. So we've shortened that for that reason as well. We didn't need that length of panels in terms of the extension of the support. It also makes it more economical.
This was not a design decision. Is that a fair statement? Sorry, this was not an aesthetic design decision.
It was a combination of all of the above.
Okay.
I think we were looking at it and wanted the concrete at the top to finish it rather than just floating the metal, and also having the garage appear tall. Also the length of panels and what they come in as far as the economics of using the panels, the height that they're manufactured in.
And trees have been added on that other image. Those trees are new since some of the previous renderings that we've seen.
Remind me, what's the orange? Seeing there?
That is a enclosure for transformers that serves the garage.
Got it, okay.
My next question is, on slide 24, it says, it has been determined that a regulation soccer field additional green space is able to be accommodated. And then on the other side, on slide 23, you talk about a study that has been completed. Are either of those determination or that study, are those publicly available or available to PFRC members?
They are not even presented to the board yet. They will be available after they're presented.
Is that the county board or the school board?
School board.
School board, okay.
It'll be part of the CIP. That's when it gets presented to them, the options for them.
So that's for the next CIP, so that's in 2024?
Correct.
Okay.
They'll
Just want
start,
to make sure we're understanding the timeline.
yeah.
Okay.
We basically put together a budget between this spring and through December, and then the superintendent in the spring will provide his recommended CIP to the board with all of the documentation and everything that we're looking at.
And my last question is also about slide 24. I understand the rationale about the use permit, but my question is there a PIP or a policy or something, long-term way of doing things that you point to for making this statement? That the renovation, relocation, site reconstruction cannot be included?
It's simply because it's not funded. It has to be funded to be put into a plan.
Do you have, I'm sorry, do you have a PIP or a school board policy, or is there a county board law, or not county board law, but Arlington County regulation or law? That's what I'm trying to get to the bottom of.
You can't plan for something that's not funded.
I planned for my house, and it wasn't funded, so I'm just curious how that works.
It's noted.
That's not
The scope
clarifying.
was already predetermined. Scope can't change at this point.
Right.
I will say that from the context of the planning commission, motions can be made which would indicate what we would like to see a desired state of existence being in the next CIP and thereafter with regards to MPSA or other things. Is that like binding on the world? No, but certainly the feeling of how the planning commission expresses itself is something that is noted, and
Yeah,
I
I think
could
the board
be
the current board has spoken as to what they think should happen, but it has not been funded into the CIP. So if the planning commission would say that we feel that the direction the board is taking is appropriate and what should be included in the next CIP, I think that is appropriate.
Cool.
But it really can't be binding because the board, and they said 2028, the next board might say it's 2029. I don't know.
The constraints of what can and cannot be done in the timeline of the CIP, I understand that, that there are those constraints. I think that conveying the sense of, for the planning commission, for the county board, and sort of, individual school board members, whoever it may be, like, that those are things that can be conveyed and, part of the record. I know that's not the same as what you consistently expressed, and I think that messaging has been very clear. But I say that to give some kind of sense of it's not, it is heard and recognized, and that's something that I would expect to be a topic of conversation when it does come to the planning commission.
Thank you, that's all the clarifying questions that I had.
Okay, Christina, do you?
Yeah, I have a few.
And then we'll go to the online peoples because I see hands.
So on slide 17, between the new ACC and the MIPSA playground, I believe we have talked about the fact that there would be a fence there to separate the high school spaces from the elementary space. I wanted to see if we should be showing that or if we were planning for that fence. I would like to see what that looks like.
We're planning for it. It's not shown here, but it's certainly shown.
It's a 4-foot chain link fence, rubber coated chain link fence.
Okay, I would love to see that added, just so that people in the community can really visualize what it's going to look like. Because I know I've made this comment before, because this plan looks kind of lovely and open, but I know that's not really what it's going to look like, because we have to have that separation between the spaces. Likewise, I thought there was a playground on slide 17 for the youth development program at the ACC. I believe that playground was there. I don't know if that is that blue strip. I just wanted to ask where that playground is for the preschool program that's there.
That's the blue strip.
It's the blue strip.
Yep.
Okay. Is that separately fenced as well? And can you show that?
We took the fences off so you have a better view of the building.
Okay. Again, I would, my preference is to reflect reality. So if fences are there, I'd like to see the fences. Likewise, on slide 18, we're not showing the fence around that field, which at least I know on the South Highland side, we've talked about is a pretty high fence to protect the community. And the, you know, again, the openness that you're conveying here, I don't think reflects what it's actually going to look like. So I think it would be important to have that reflected, if I understand correctly, where we're putting fences.
Yeah, it appears that all the fences were turned off.
Yeah, so I'd like to see the fences, so that is a good question.
A child carrying balloons.
A lot of balloons.
Is it a child or just a pile of balloons?
There's
I see
legs.
legs.
My eyesight is terrible. All I see is a pile of balloons.
There's also a pink coat with.
There's a pink coat. I thought that was just another balloon. Okay,
I don't
I'm
have
sorry.
feelings on the balloons. I do have feelings on, I'd like to see the fences.
Okay.
On the street designs, I don't see marked anywhere accessible spaces. And I also don't see marked pickup drop off. So I'd like to know both for MIPSA pickup drop off as well as for ACC pickup drop off, where on the streetscape that is supposed to happen. Is that in the parking lane? Are those parking lanes time restricted? And also, do we have permanent ADA parking spaces adjacent to these buildings on the street? And if so, where are those?
We are currently working with the county on complete streets for parking, handicap parking spaces on Walter Reed. But I believe we are looking currently at 4 spaces. We are going to have 2 handicapped accessible spaces on 7th Street. I think we've agreed on that at this point. Rob can correct me if I'm wrong on that. But we are in the process of resolving exactly where those spaces are. We have a lot of coordination going on with the Complete Streets program. I think as far as the pickup and drop-off areas, they were shown in previous meetings, and those spaces, as per the traffic study, are still in the same place. It's just that this was showing updates, not the complete presentation.
Okay, so some of that streetscape that is labeled as parking space will not actually be parking space in some locations. It will be held for pickup, drop off.
It basically, the county controls the signage. They will be, quote, parking spaces, but some may be time restricted depending on the use of that portion of the curb.
Okay, and do we have, I can't remember where it was, but in terms of how many spaces are allocated for each program for pickup, drop off, can someone remind me of what that plan is?
It's in the MMTA that was previously shared. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head.
Because I'm just curious, like where on these plans, like how much of that space is indicated. I don't know if we can show that visually, but that would be helpful.
I believe there is a graphic in the MMTA that shows the distance or where it is.
I'll see if I can find it. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that would be
I can, this is Robert Gibson. I can share my screen that has the MMTA on it if that's helpful.
yeah, that would be great. Can you do that? Yeah, thanks, Rob.
Yeah. Here's that.
If I can successfully share it. So this is the document. This is the MMTA plan sheet that shows the proposed curb space management at the time of the drafting of this. APS is looking at roughly 9 spaces along, roughly 23 spaces along Walter Reed that would be both pickup and drop off, and parking outside of those hours of pickup and drop off. APS has shown, I think this is for the Henry School, but we have to double check that Currently, the Henry pickup and drop off, my understanding is along the Henry building, or I'm sorry, MPSA pickup and drop off is along the MPSA building over here. So I do want to clarify whether or not this was for the MPSA at the Career Center, or if it was for the continued use of the Henry building. Jeff, can you clarify that?
Yeah, I believe that the space is adjacent to, because the entry door for students being dropped off is basically directly below that 3 on that line.
Yeah, so there would be 10 spaces here that are pick up and drop off for the MPSA program until a future amendment moves that program to the Career Center site.
And is the key, I don't know if you can zoom out so we can see the key for what those different colors mean. Oh yeah, thank you.
And as Jeff said, I would say that with the exception of the residential permit parking, this area is the rest of the management of curb spaces is subject to change, because we do want to ensure that our curb space best works with the surrounding uses and the community that surrounds that area. So it's one of the easiest and most adaptable things that the county can implement, short of the RPP restrictions. So please understand that what you see here today could change, but it's a good description of at least the number of spaces that are available, and generally how they could be managed.
Thank you. And for the Career Center building in the morning and evenings for pickup and drop off, will they be using multiple exits from that building?
The careers,
so we'll only have one exit. But
so the careers by the Career Center building, you mean the new Career Center?
Yeah,
building,
the new
right?
ACC, sorry.
Okay. Jeff.
Yeah, during pickup and drop off times, there'll be multiple entrances and exits for that building. We'll probably focus on the 7th Street and the main entrance, but there will be other doors typically get opened. And again, I don't think we have the full management plan put together yet for arrival and dismissal times.
Okay.
But MPSA, I believe they have multiple doors open as well. It's just that's the main entry. But for parent pickup, they do control that. But arrival, I think it'll probably still be a little bit multiple entrances. Parents are coming in, the main entrance are coming.
I mean, I don't have children at MIPSA, but when I had children at Henry, a lot of the other entrances will now not be accessible because they'll be bus lanes and or adjacent to ACC. There is an entrance, I believe, along 7th Street, but it's not currently a main entrance. I don't know if there's thinking about making that a pickup drop-off location as well.
It could be.
Okay. I just have one more question on slide 5. This is the first time I feel like we've seen a little more detail of what that new MIPSA play area is going to look like. I know it's part of this use permit. We haven't seen ever plans for the design of that. I'm just curious if we will see those, if you're working with the school on those to make sure that that new space is meeting needs, but also I think from a community perspective, people would also like to know more about what that space will be, especially given that the existing play spaces are open to the community after school hours and are well utilized. So I think I would like to know more, and I think the communities would like to know more about what the design of that new MIPSA play space is, and whether this group gets to look at that ever or not.
Well, it won't be this group because this is our last meeting before the board, but I mean, I think that feedback can be taken in terms of will it be part of a future presentation to Planning Commission and our county board, if that's appropriate timing wise.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Jeff. Can you correct us? This is going to be delivered this summer, correct?
Correct. Correct.
So
they will actually be starting on the grass area this month. So, but we can share that. But essentially, what you can see on this plan is what's within the fence around the koi pond. That all remains as it is. The rectangle just above the trees is a grass play area. Above that is a half-court asphalt basketball court. And then that amoeba-shaped space is pathway walkway, and it's a lot of structured play equipment. And the dark spot above the sidewalk right there is a large piece of play equipment. All of those will be accessible to the community. Going up to the corner of 7th and Highland, there will be primary play equipment, so age-appropriate size, with a pathway through the playground for accessibility. And the current asphalt area that they have, half of it covered with mulch, and half of it, I believe, is still exposed asphalt, will be replaced with a soft turf grass area for them to utilize for the primary.
Has MIPSA or someone there been involved in selecting that play equipment, or how is that decision being made? And the reason, I'll just say for context, one reason I'm asking is I know when Fleet opened up, something happened and none of the playground equipment ended up being handicap accessible, and we had to go back and petition for that. Likewise, when they did that, they put in some basketball courts in front of TJ that were on a slant, and so therefore not usable. So I just want to make sure we're keeping an eye on the functionality of that space.
Yes, we are. We did have our handicapped advocates were part of that with the school. So we had a committee of 8 to 12.
Yeah, it's a pretty large committee that
Okay, good.
helped us design that.
Yep.
Including school staff.
Okay, great, thank you.
I think that was your last question, but I was going to say, I think we did diverge from clarifying questions for that last piece. We would have otherwise covered that in building details and materials. Now we don't have to, so there you go. It looks like Terry's hand was up first. So Terry, do you have any clarifying questions?
Well, I fear I may not be as clarifying, but I hope it is. I think it's slide 17. For some reason on the inline, online it doesn't show what slide it is, but it's the facade facing 7th Street with showing the setback. I think it's slide 17.
I made that note.
Yeah, that's slide 17.
Yes. One of the things that's nice about the campus that you've designed here is the amount of different colors and how it moves around the building. And yet, am I correct that the sides of the building facing the residential area are like cement gray, like a prison? There's no color at all?
There's a gray masonry and metal panel. There's some green on the corner.
I'm just saying, I think that is not a very inviting look from a neighborhood. That's not particularly clarifying, but I'd like to clarify that wall doesn't stay that way. Because there's so much nice color in these plans you've presented.
The intentionality is that this wall is going to have large trees growing up, right?
Correct. Tall trees and understory trees as well.
Okay. So that I think is what's
because I mean the way the
houses.
slide right now is very formidable.
I think that shadowy piece that I was talking about before, that's where the trees is reflective of the trees that are going to be there.
Well, the side that faces no, the shadowy part that faces the interior where the little playground is fine.
Okay.
It's the wall, the right angle to it that faces directly to 7th Street that I'm concerned about.
Okay, noted. Okay. Was that your only clarifying question, Terry?
Yeah, that's it for me.
Okay.
Thank you.
There's a phone number that had a hand raised. I didn't see a name associated with it, though. Do we know who had that hand raised? Maybe the hand went down.
Doris said she was calling in.
Doris? Okay.
Oh, that's her.
I don't know. I can't see who. That's hand number 2. Who is that?
Ending in 4489.
Right here.
Phone number 4489. May I ask who's on the line? You are muted. Unmute 4489.
Press *6 to unmute.
I don't know that we can unmute them.
They did.
Hi. 4489.
calling on me?
Yes. Yes.
You were? Okay.
Yes. Hi,
This
Doris.
Hi, this is Doris Ray from the Disability Commission. And I was wondering, you mentioned gravel area. Where is that going to be, and who's going to be using traversing it?
Stabilized gravel, and it's underneath these.
Yeah, I thought you said gravel when they were describing it before, that there's a gravel area. Is that like the playground or something, or?
No, it's under the trees, between the field and the building. It's where students will have seating areas and be able to take lunch. It's a stabilized gravel area. It is fully accessible. It doesn't move. It's just, it allows the gravel is fixed in place and allows storm water to get into the ground there.
But I don't understand how it can be smooth and be gravel.
It's very similar to what was done at the memorial at the Pentagon. It's the same material, but that's a stabilized gravel. It's fully accessible by wheelchair and other devices.
Okay, well, I'll take you at your word, because gravel is the absolute worst thing to have to traverse.
Understood.
And really, yeah, and now, especially knowing that it's a gathering place and a place for people to eat, I'm real concerned about the choice. The playground, is it going to be an accessible playground with both the surfacing and the equipment being fully?
We had a committee work with us for accessibility. All of the equipment is accessible. We have a rubberized pathway to make sure that we can get to all of the equipment. And there are wheelchair transfer places for a lot of the equipment, and everybody was comfortable from the accessibility committees that it was accessible.
So did that include people with disabilities themselves, or, members of the Disability Advisory Commission or something, or is it a school committee?
It was both. There was a community committee as well as our school committee for special education.
But it wasn't, you didn't ask the Disability Commission to have members there, right?
I don't recall the groups that we had at this point.
I don't recall it from our meetings that we were asked.
No, we typically, for all of our playgrounds, assemble experts on disabilities now when we do playgrounds, ever since we did Fleet.
So it will meet the 2010
yes
accessibility standard, and anything beyond that for federally assisted programs, right?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Hi, sorry, I had one other quick clarifying question.
When will that be in operation? I'm just curious about that.
They will be using that the next school year. So in the
coming
fall,
up in September.
In this September, it will be being used.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Doris. Yes, you have a question.
Yes, so apologies since I'm new to the PFRC if this has been answered in previous meetings, but I just wanted to clarify for the area that's marked as special concrete paving. On the plans, it looks like because it's a curveless environment, it's designed to have some kind of either graphic or painted pattern to indicate that it's, a pedestrian first environment, but it's not that way on page 14. So I assume that's just a graphic
It's
thing.
a graphic thing.
Okay.
It's basically two colors of concrete is what we're currently working with for that.
Okay.
We also, we had the bollards separating the bus and service vehicle drive lane from a sidewalk area. We will also have speed bumps, so to speak, at the intersections, as well as truncated domes at typical intersection, but we don't want it to look like street and sidewalk.
Okay, so there will be bollards as well, you're saying?
Yeah,
Just
they
aren't
were
shown
shown
currently.
in previous presentations, but it's basically concrete furnishings.
Okay,
So
yeah, that's what I was gonna ask, if you've looked into having it be benches or some other
It is
functional
rectangular
furniture.
concrete benches and round concrete benches, I think is essentially the.
Great,
They're shown in the site plan, little circles and they're really
Yeah,
small.
if you've got
Okay.
a magnifying glass.
yeah.
Very.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we took a little bit of time on clarifying questions. I think we started to get into some of the overall topics. The agenda for this evening, let's continue through with that. On tap for this evening, talking about, civic values, citing and orientation building, building form, building details and materials. I think we've talked a fair amount on some of these topics in some of the prior meetings. So let's start with civic values, see if there's anything kind of specifically comes up under sort of that from a topic standpoint. But then as far as sort of the other kind of building form, building details, those kinds of questions, I think we can tackle those as sort of a combined topic, based on sort of how some of the conversation is already going this evening. Doris, your hand is raised still, but is that from before?
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Doris, your hand is raised. I just didn't know if you had a follow-up question or if that was just from before.
Oh, no, I think I forgot to put my
That's
hand
okay.
down.
Just wanted to make sure I recognized you. Thank you. Christy, yes.
Is this where we talk about what we like and don't like?
Can you make that any bigger? Seriously, eyesight. That's really far away.
Oh, I just wanted to say, as far as civic design, I do appreciate that you took off the sawtooth top ceiling and made it flat. I feel like that does fit in with the surrounding area in terms of civic design much better. I actually wrote on my picture a little heart that says, "Love this." So I'm not negative about everything.
We should get stickers for next time. Stickers on what we like.
I also wanted to say I really appreciate all the trees that you're putting around, all the extra trees that you're putting around the parking garage. I think that will look really nice. I am critical of not making of changing the shape of the panels. I would prefer that they're much bigger and still block the nature of the parking garage. But I do appreciate you putting more trees around it, so maybe there's some sort of compromise there.
One thing to note, early on, we were using the panels to block light and also to allow people to see into the garage. Everybody was concerned about the headlights of vehicles, so we actually added concrete walls, so to speak, to block the light. So the panels are purely decorative. They're not really showing anything, but we tried to compromise, and we did have a lot of cost by adding those walls rather than, if you looked at the rendering of the building across, the parking structure across does not have anything blocking anything.
No, I know, I'm just saying that
But we
since
did.
it's 2023 and it's above ground garage, that we really did appreciate having the panels, which I know are not structural, but they disguise the nature of an above ground garage,
Understood.
which you can't really build in Arlington, except for right here.
And I think if anybody wants to look at the BLPC PFRC meeting number 8, there are a lot of pictures, renderings of the trees and of the pedestrian way and all of that, that some of the questions that came up, it's not as clear as to, like, the 7th Street entrance looks significantly better with the renderings that were done there, because it shows it from the view of 7th Street. That would be on page 12 of that presentation done at the last meeting.
Say one more thing about
Yeah.
that. I mean, no one lives on 9th Street, so to the extent possible, and we'll do this more later, but I would prefer, it looks the nicest on Highland to the extent possible. But I do appreciate all the trees that you put up.
Just to be clear, in terms of looks the nicest, that would be more tree coverage, more just,
More panels. More panels.
okay,
more
panels, tree coverage, okay.
foliage, yeah.
Looks the nicest, that can be open to a lot of interpretation from a
No,
lot of
that's
people, and you
fair,
probably don't want to
that's
just put that
fair.
out there.
That's fair, I just,
I like plaid, I'm just saying.
yeah.
Okay.
We can make the pattern flat.
I mean, I love a good, kilt.
One question I had about the panels too is if there's a reason why they're focused near the top of the garage rather than near the bottom where pedestrians will actually be experiencing them more and walking next to them. Or if, I don't know if how final this is, if they could end up moving around, it's more
It
based
was
on
really
size
to
and
cover
structure.
it was really to cover the openings. You don't really have the openings on, as many openings on them.
I think there's also gonna be trees on the lower part, so that will be shading more of the lower part. So between the trees and then where the panels are placed, I think kind of a patchwork, fair description? Okay.
Yeah, and we did add a significant amount of trees on the corner of Highland and 9th with tall trees and understory trees.
Ornamental trees.
And it was for that reason, for screening.
I think it might be nice from a visual presentation standpoint for planning commission. I appreciate the visuals that kind of showed kind of the shadowing of what would be trees. I think it might also be nice to have a visual that shows the trees there too, so you can see what.
So maybe we have a with trees and without trees.
I think that would be helpful. I might recommend the same thing for the fence situation, a with fence and without fence option. Because I do think it's helpful to get a sense of the space without fences, but the reality is there's going to be fences, so we should see visually what that experience will be like.
Yeah, I think the last presentation, it was rendered in white, which was actually the wrong color.
Right, that was a challenge because that didn't also visually maybe stand out. So, what we can kind of do on that. I don't know if there's
I have another civic design comment.
Yeah.
So I have heard from a few people in Penrose, and I think people in Arlington Heights as well, asking about the LEED status of the building and the fact that we're not targeting as high of a level as some of our previous projects. So as a concern that, I know one of the civic design principles did have to do with environmental goals. And I know we had talked about the fact that, putting, say, geothermal wells on the site is a challenge, although someone told me that we have done that underneath buildings in the past. And so I'm not sure why that would be prohibited here. I understand the issue with the roofing and the challenges of solar panels, given all the equipment on the roof and the patio spaces. But I don't know if we can revisit that and aim higher.
Well, just our minimum is always silver. We typically have been getting gold. It's very difficult at this point to get platinum because of the changes with the rating system. We just got gold for Cardinal, but you don't know until you're finished with the building. But we do aim higher than silver, but silver is our minimum. Go for, that's a requirement of the county. That's one thing to look for. As far as we are still looking to be energy efficient. We are actually putting in a heating system that could be switched in the future if someone would so choose to, because it's going to be a constant temperature loop. It could switch to geothermal in the future. One of the reasons we got rid of the sawtooth on the top was because even though it's sloped to drain, it can also have solar panels there. So the one rendering that we had in the presentation from Walter Reed, you can see there are some open roof spaces, and all those open roof spaces would be available for solar panels, which APS doesn't put them on as part of our projects, but it's a power purchasing agreement that is available for the group that we work with that has the contracts for our current power purchasing agreements and or any future ones for that to be put on the building.
If this is off topic, you don't have to answer it, but I was just curious if you've done any studies of where the would the geothermal fields in the future be probably under the open space where MPSA?
That's where they could be, is under the green space, under the field space. But we did do a study, and we just didn't have the space or the place, and or the phasing would not work to do it, because we have to keep all of the schools currently on site, fully occupied and operational during the process, and we had no place to drill them.
But they could be done once that building's demolished
That
potentially.
would be a choice that could be made, yes.
For the number of wells needed for this building, that's the only large space that really could accommodate.
Yeah.
I know this is very small, but while we have, this is the Career Center landing page that's yet to from the PFRC page. All of the meeting materials are attached from the first two joint PFRC VLPC meetings. The sustainable, or the C2E2 letter is located here, and then it's also down here with some of the letters that we've received over the past couple of years on the project. And then APS has also provided a sustainable design memo addressing some of the concerns that C2E2 raised.
Thank you. That is very helpful. And if, having everything collected in one space it certainly is more efficient. Oh, Terry, I see your hand is up.
Yes, I seem to be asking questions in the wrong order, and I apologize. But someone mentioned that they had putting up concrete walls in the garage to keep their, and the panels were only decorative because of the headlights, which I understood. But I was unclear about what are we doing about ventilation for the parking structure, if those panels are solid and the walls are solid.
No, the panels are not solid. That's what makes them so expensive, is they are perforated. But at the same time, they provide color.
But you said behind them you had put up concrete walls to keep the headlights from going into the neighborhood.
Go back to,
I'm sorry, I must have missed a meeting.
yeah, if you go back to slide 20, there are some, you can see where the concrete walls are.
They're like little half walls, right?
Correct.
They're knee walls.
They're knee
Yeah.
walls.
That block headlights,
Yeah.
but not.
Their headlight height.
Right, but we have to have a certain opening to allow ventilation, so there is ventilation.
Okay, fine. That was not
Yep.
clear from what you said. Thank you.
Yes, there you go.
Thank you, Terry. Doris, just confirming that your hand is still raised from before. In terms of, let's move on to siting and orientation. I think, Olivia, you had some key topics maybe that were shareable there. Now, I know we've talked about this topic several other times, kind of at each of the meetings. I do think we're heading in a positive direction with some of the wider sidewalk spaces and, certainly more of the greenery that I think is also helping to kind of shield and work with the neighborhood siting a bit better. Any kind of, create a positive outdoor spaces, pedestrian emphasis. I certainly think we're moving in a very strong direction in that regard. Any feedback on kind of this topic? You're looking like you have something to say, or no?
Is this where we talk about the two options for the bike paths for 9th Street?
Yeah, let's do it.
I was just curious if you guys had, with your two options, if you have a preference, or if you've looked at how having the bike path on either side would feed into where the bike paths are planned on Walter Reed.
Oh, it's
Yeah, we are coordinating the bike paths. Either one will work with Walter Reed. I think that we have heard through the BLPC PFRC process a desire for as much parking as possible. So that's why we have the two options at this point in time. But again, and because of the width available, you have compromises that have to be made. So it is a bike route. What's the actual term?
Boulevard.
Bike boulevard. So,
For option 2.
well, no, 9th Street is a bike
Oh,
boulevard.
yeah, sorry, I thought, yeah.
So I think that the desire and some groups were expressing to have protected bike lanes because of the parking garage, accessibility and the use of 9th Street. And others in the community want to maximize the parking. So hence we have two. And we will continue to work with the county and determine what seems to be the most appropriate option. Correct, Rob?
Yeah, I do want to say that, I mean, the county and APS in this area do hope to have feedback from PFRC, BLPC, and the rest of the advisory committees as we continue to look at this. We are pretty sure that the 45-foot cross section on the western end adjacent to the garage gives us a lot of flexibility. It really is, the tough part is getting the design right and getting it integrated with the Walter Reed Drive design. So staff and APS's team are going to probably sharpen our pencils some more and look at how to make sure these two infrastructure projects can tie in together. And I think one of the things that we've heard is that the westbound protected bike lane, particularly as it goes along the school entrance and everything, is one of the highest desired elements here. And then we've heard, obviously, that there is some desire from the community to maintain the parking there. We do know that from the parking study that parking wasn't used as much previously. That doesn't mean that it wouldn't be with the new school and expanded campus. So if you have some suggestions and thoughts, please feel free to provide them.
I have a suggestion. I don't know if we mapped the idea of either slant parking or 90-degree parking, which I think would create more spaces. And I know some of the students have expressed that one reason 9th Street is so underutilized is because it's currently fee parking and it's very underparked. So we could create more open parking spaces there and really maximize that space. That would be an option for student parking potentially. And I don't know if we can map that out, but I think that would be nice to see. And I think the pedestrian traffic there is mostly going to be school traffic. I don't think there's otherwise a lot of pedestrian traffic that I've ever seen on 9th Street there. So I do know there's a bike lane. So anyhow, I don't know if that's possible, but for your consideration. And if we can make a recommendation that it not be metered parking there, then I think it would be much better utilized, particularly by students.
That topic has come up, especially with students in one of the earlier joint meetings. Parking, is controlled by the county through DES. Rob, do you want to respond to that directly or just take the feedback?
No, I think that we will look at, particularly along the school's edge, whether metered parking continues to be appropriate.
And can we look at slant parking instead of parallel parking? Wouldn't that increase the number of spaces?
I don't think that we have enough space here. We'll go back and take a look, but I'm pretty certain that we don't have enough space for angled parking.
Even if you only did it on one side of the street?
Yeah, surprisingly, everybody thinks it's efficient, but it actually doesn't turn out to be as efficient as actual 90-degree parking. That said, we'll take a look at your concern and see if there is an approach that makes sense for that, and if it works with the other transportation facilities on the street.
Okay, thank you.
Christy?
I just wanted to add one wrinkle about 9th Street. There are people who find a place to park and then they stay there the whole time. For instance, there's some kind of stretch Hummer that's consistently parked outside MIPSA day after day after day. And so I might suggest, if there are kids coming from another high school to take a career center, one of these 3-hour career center classes or 2 hours, I might suggest limiting during the day to like 2 hours or 3 hours, whatever the class length is, plus, half an hour to park and get there and back. Because also there's a lot of tow trucks that park along 9th Street. So if the idea is to give some parking for students, I think there needs to be some way of limiting other types of parking that, stretch Hummers, your tow trucks, your busted up cars.
A stretch Hummer would take up a significant amount of parking.
It does. I've
So.
seen it.
I thought that was yours, Christy.
Pointing out.
Only on weekends, that's why it's there Monday through Friday.
I think I've
although
taken enough site visits that I have seen it parked on almost every street that doesn't have parking meters.
Yeah, I do think though, in addition to the students taking one class, that Arlington Tech students have expressed a desire to have parking. And I know some of them have internships as part of the co-op approach, et cetera. So so it would be nice to have some, maybe you don't allow overnight parking, or I don't know how it works, but.
Yeah. I'm just throwing that out there as seeing that kind of stuff all the time.
Okay, well, I learned something about a stretch Hummer, so that was fascinating. Okay, anything else with regards to kind of citing and orientation? I think we've covered that significantly on multiple occasions. With regards to building form, I'd like to take that at the same time as building details and materials. Some of this, we got into a bit before. We talked about materials, we talked about kind of color palette, building form. We've gotten some feedback that the revisions to the roof are being met with some enthusiasm. I've heard a heart. So, I think that's a very positive development. I will say that I think certainly some of the step backs and some of the increased communal spaces created by like what I described as the patio effect. I'm very pleased to see that, just in terms of being a very welcoming and inviting space. We got some feedback from Terry with regards to kind of what the building is going to look like facing some of the houses, I believe, on 9th Street. So I don't know, Terry, I don't know if you wanted to expand on any of that. You don't have to. Okay. Does anyone else have anything that fits kind of in the building form, building details and materials here to chat about now?
I just really like the building form of the new ACC. I like that you're not sticking with like traditional Arlington square red brick. I like that it's something new and contemporary. So thank you.
That's positive feedback for building form, as well as details and materials. We can.
I do think one thing that it's on all other and used to be mentioned up front with regard to the back of the career center, which is the brittlest concrete currently, is going to have metal panels, and they are complementary to what the panels we're putting on the parking structures. So that whole composition in the back along with the rows is very perfect. I speak to these waxing poetic.
Yeah.
You're saying there will be metal panels on the back of the existing existing
Correct.
ACC also? Okay.
Yeah, I think if you look at the renderings, you'll see
Sure.
it in the background, but we really didn't mention this meeting.
Terry, your hand is now raised. Would you like to speak?
I turned off my microphone. I thought I was through speaking. I'm sorry. I really do think we have worked really hard to make Highland Street presentable to the neighborhood, and that the people on 7th Street should have the same thought pattern for them to make that space. I don't know if trees will solve the grayness or not, but it would help. I just think we've really worked hard on Highland, and we should also do a little bit more on 7th Street to make that more pleasant view from their houses. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we can look at the material. I think, again, look at the renderings from 8, because I think we did spend a lot of time. One of the biggest things we did was we pulled it. It used to be out at the sidewalk, and I don't know what the distance is off of 7th Street at this point, but it's significant.
Yeah, pulling it back was very good. I appreciate that a lot.
I also think widening that sidewalk along 7th is excellent. Thank you.
I was also going to say, I think you mentioned that you pulled it back from 7th Street, and I do appreciate that as well.
Great. Terry, your hand is still raised. Do you have another comment or leftover?
Yeah,
Terry, did you have another comment? Your hand is raised. Nope.
There.
Your hand went away. Doris, were you trying to speak before?
yes, I had a comment.
Is that Polly?
Hello,
Doris.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you, Doris. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. I was just curious about whether at this location there will be accessible traffic signals, particularly including audible traffic signals.
Yeah, I think 7th and 9th Street will be getting all new signalization as part of the complete streets. So it will be all current technology.
And I really hope that they will be spoken word traffic signals. I think it's less confusing for children as well as adults. And additionally, my experience over here in Crystal City at 15th and Crystal Drive was just a terrible one with the pause signals. I couldn't tell when to cross, so.
Yeah, these are just standard traffic signals.
It is a standard traffic signal?
Yes, the red, yellow, green traffic signal.
The one that I referred to here in Crystal City? Or the
No,
one
the
at,
ones that'll be going up for this project.
so they won't be audibles?
No, they will probably be audible. Rod, what do they put in when you put in new traffic signals?
Well, the last we were briefed, the Disability Commission was briefed, they were switching from spoken word, which tells you, you know, when and where to cross, to pause signals. And the one that I encountered now that I work at Crystal City with the pause signals didn't tell me anything. And if there was no one around and or no one, you know, who stopped to offer any assistance, which you shouldn't have to anyway with an audible signal, I since there was the time I used it just a couple of weeks ago, I knew it was an audible signal because it vibrated as and it had pulse signals, but I didn't know what to do. So that's why I'm saying it's better to have spoken word signal, and I don't think unless you affirmatively ask for it that the county may not provide it. And it would be helpful for people coming back to the Career Center as well, you know, coming back and forth to the Career Center, because I'm sure there'll be visually impaired youth who will be doing that.
Rob, did you want to respond?
I think my best response is I can take that back to our signal team and see if that helps with the signal specifications that they approve for this. I'm glad to hear that our signals team is working with the Disability Advisory Committee on informing our design standards and getting feedback on those.
But they haven't listened to our feedback. They've gone ahead with all. So.
Rob, I think that's feedback you should also take back.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Doris.
Thank you.
Okay. So let's do a final kind of round robin to any last comments or thoughts. I think we had a very productive conversation. I would really like to thank, I guess I'll go first. I'd really like to thank APS for a very kind of comprehensive presentation. I think we were able to give clear feedback on the few things we would like to see better illustrated when it comes to Planning Commission and ultimately County Board. But I certainly think that the renderings we saw tonight get us in a good direction. We've heard a lot of positive feedback on some of the changes, roof line, setbacks, more tree coverage, and maybe some slightly less positive feedback with regards to some of the metal paneling on the garage and some of the, how we handle I believe it's the 7th Street reflection to the community. So, a couple things maybe to take note on, but by and large, I think it's been a very positive, headed in a very positive direction. It's been a very positive conversation. I always go this way. Why don't we, would you like to go next? First, after me, so second, technically.
I think, again, just very positive reaction overall to the new ACC building. I've been somewhat plugged into the project throughout, even though this is my first PFRC meeting, but I'm happy to see all the changes that have been made. I know the parking garage is a sore point, but I'd encourage you to cover it up as much as humanly possible and as much as the budget allows. I like the direction of the perforated metal panels. I have looked at vegetative panels instead, which has also been an option that's been popping up on parking garages, which could also help with, cleaning the exhaust and ventilation kind of concerns as well. I understand cost implications and such, but just as much as you can cover it up, I'd appreciate it.
We have looked at the vegetated in earlier schemes. And
Yeah.
It's just cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
And maintenance is not that.
Dead vegetation is not a good one.
Correct.
As it turns out, I have a lot of dead plants. Keep the fish alive, and the kid too, and the dog. So, I get credit where, for those things. Christy. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I appreciate the setbacks, the trees, the widening on 7th Street. I will reiterate what we've talked about streetscaping and proper sidewalks all the way around. And then I didn't talk much about fences today. I did send an email about the conversations that our association has tried to have with some AMAC Montessori parents about the size of the fences. We really do feel strongly about the 4 feet fence going around the corner being appropriate. And I also did some research on, this is in our letter, but I did some research on what the county considers these streets to be. And as far as, for instance, Highland is it's in the letter, but I think that, you know, neighborhood
If you'd like
minor.
the letter.
I think neighborhood minor is what the county calls it. So, yeah, so I think, you know, it's appropriate for the 4 feet fence. That is just a hill I'm gonna die on. And I feel that a 6-foot fence says keep out, especially going around the corner. A 4-foot fence says this is their neighborhood. These are where, you know, we have a lot of kids that go to MIPSA. This is a welcoming place. And so we do feel strongly about that. I think we're going in the right direction. We still have a lot of concerns about the final condition being 3 buildings. I understand what APS is saying. I also appreciate the chair's comments about what the planning commission can say. I understand it's not a contract, obviously, but the more, I think for the people, especially living around that area, the more you can make them feel that this is really going to happen is going to be so helpful, because, you know, they're looking at, what is it now, 7 years construction maybe? It's a lot of change. And so to the extent that you can make those people feel valued and they understand, and even the people who go to MIPSA, that, you know, this is going to happen. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Christina. Yeah, so I want to say we appreciate Arlington Heights letter that they have submitted. I'm representing Penrose. Penrose is in the process of drafting a concurring letter. So I want you all to know that is coming, particularly the concern about the final site plan showing 2 schools and that being the goal. There is, you know, it's 2,500 students on the site is a lot of students, and the end use condition of this permit shows a lot of building. And so, like Christy, I'd like to know what the law is that actually says that we can't show the final condition, because maybe we could, especially because the school board has expressed that that is the intent. So, you know, again, we're going to continue to raise that, but the site does get utilized a lot now by the community, the open spaces that exist on the site, and we are taking a lot of those offline until we get to this final phase where the MIPSA building is removed. And so that is a concern of the community, combined with the very long construction time period through all the phases, you know, starting this summer, demolishing the existing building, building the new ACC building, demolishing part of the old ACC building, building the parking garage, doing the field, and then at that point, gearing up hopefully for the next phase where you're refinishing the building. So it's a very long timeline for the community. And so I think, again, to have as much assurance as we can about what the end state looks like, which, you know, I would like to see. We've never seen a plan. I'm glad to hear their studies. Obviously, we have not had access to them yet. But to see what that actually looks like, or what it could look like, you know, what the field space could be, you know, to think about what the traffic patterns would be for that, you know, for that final configuration, and are we appropriately planning for those now? So that's what a lot of my concerns are. And again, also just reflecting what things are really going to look like with things like fencing, with things like parking, so that the community can really understand what the plan is from a functional perspective. So what is pickup drop-off really going to look like? What is the accessible parking going to look like? What do the playgrounds look like? How are they fenced? How can the community get to them? What is the playground equipment that's going to be on that community in those spaces available to the public? So as much of that as we can share is very appreciated. So
Thank you. Terry, any final wrap-up comments?
No, no.
That works. Doris, any final wrap-up comments?
I think I'm okay, but I do want to say as a summary that I think the facility and the pedestrian rights of way and the grounds need to be fully accessible because it's important going forward, especially in a school facility and with students, so that they can have a chance to fully participate in all the activities related to school properties and properties like the Career Center. So we appreciate that, and I hope maybe that you might be interested in coming to the Disability Advisory Commission to, brief them as well. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who is on the PFRC?
I think Polly is on. I don't know.
Yep, this is Polly Hall from Ashton Heights, and appreciated the conversation today. We definitely echo the interest in really having that visibility into the kind of end state, and also recognize the burden the neighborhood is taking on behalf of the greater Arlington community during this time of a 7-year construction cycle. So appreciate the attentiveness to providing them visibility into, again, what will be coming online when, and making the site available at the earliest possible time for the community and then the broader APS community. But also want to thank everybody for the work that has obviously gone into the process over the last several months. So thank you.
Kate Donahue? No? Do you, sorry, my eyesight is really bad.
It's Kate Donahan.
Donahan, sorry about that. Kate, did you have any wrap-up comments you would like to share?
Sure. I basically am mostly interested in the trees and the landscaping, and I just want to say that I am thrilled that you have added all the trees around the parking garage, and also that you have added trees over the last, several meetings I've been to. It seems like every time your comments have been made and you come back and there are more trees that you have found space for. So I appreciate that very much. And I'm really kind of like looking forward to seeing how all of this gets built. I think it's going to be quite the project. But thanks very much.
Thank you. Okay. The PFRC members have wrapped up our wrap-up. That's only funny to me. Okay, so we do have time for public comment. I think we have at least one person who would like one person in person. Wow, I'm doing it accidentally. Who would like to speak for public comment? Do we have anyone, internet people, who want to do public comment? Okay, take it away. Let's do 3 minutes. We're running on a good schedule. You can have 3 minutes.
All right. No, thanks again for the opportunity to speak. Appreciate speaking in the last meeting as well. Once again, I'm Brian Sigritz. I'm the other co-president from Arlington Heights Civic Association. I know we submitted the letter, we passed it around, so I think all of you have the letter, kind of reiterating our concerns, and they expanded on some of the concerns from the previous letter we shared with you at the last meeting. I should also say that, we had a meeting last week, a week ago today, with both Jeff and Steve and David Pretty from the school board and members of our neighborhood communities. So for both Penrose and Arlington Heights, and I think everyone there can attest, it was a very lively and passionate discussion. And, I know here you're only hearing from me, Christy, and Kristen, about some of our concerns, but there's numerous members of, residents from these neighborhoods raising a lot of the same concerns we have even before we shared the letter with them. Concerns, some of the concerns they raised was the lack of green space and use permit, the number of buildings remaining in the use permit, the amount of parking spaces in the parking garage, environmental standards for the buildings, sidewalk widths, fence site at South and Highland, the lack of regulation size field, and the overall vision of the project. So, we're hearing this a lot from people that we deal with, see every day in our neighborhoods. So, a lot of concerns still. We do appreciate some of the changes that have been made, but, we still do have, especially concerns about this question, the final condition and the buildings remaining. Appreciate, some of what you've kind of alluded to, what the planning commission could state, but definitely still a lot of concerns about the final condition remaining 3 buildings, lack of green space with the 3 buildings. Christy mentioned still concerns about the sidewalk more towards Highland side, closer to South and Highland, fencing over there, parking structure. Any way you can make that appealing to the neighborhood and the appearance is greatly appreciated. We hear still a lot of times some people in the neighborhood wishing it'd be underground and confused why it's not underground. There's been underground parking garages both other places. So we've kind of, I guess at this point, conceded it's going to be above ground, but anyway, you can make that more appealing to the people facing Highland. And I think Christy's right, that facing 9th is, facing the ECDC parking garage. So that's not as, facing residents as much as the one facing on Highland. So, I believe that's most things, but once again, appreciate the opportunity to share concerns. And if anyone has any questions about our letter, please let me know.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else from the public online? I don't think we do. All right. This concludes the 3rd and final meeting of either the joint BLPC PFRC or PFRC or whatever constitution we are at this point in time. I believe the matter will, the APS will be presenting some of the different, County South will be presenting some of the different citizen advisory commissions over the coming weeks.
Parks and Rec Commission and Transportation Commission next week, following with the Planning Commission.
Okay, so that is, I think, either May 31st, potentially June 1st. Stay tuned for when it ends up on the agenda. That will be announced. We're adjourned.